Excellent. So everybody's welcome, and I'm just going to hand over to our wonderful volunteer, Kirsty Comac. Kirsty, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. Hold on, sorry, I'm just getting my notes up here. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name, as Joe has introduced me, my name is Kirsty Comac. I'm a volunteer with the LGBTQIA Plus Heritage Project, and you're all very welcome to this month's episode of History Club. And this is for the first time we're going to be doing something a little bit differently to our usual format. So we are going to do something much more personal and much more unscripted. And we are going to hear the oral history of our upcoming speaker. And of course, if you feel confident enough, anybody in the room. So coming up, we have our lovely Sarah Dalzell. She has the honor of being the only rainbow celebrant in Northern Ireland. Apparently, only one other person shares this honor, and she is in Northern England. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah. And she has the honor of serving the queer community in Northern Ireland in many respects. For example, she does weddings. She also does funerals, and also something called living wakes, which I have never heard of, and I would love to hear more about in a second. And she also does naming ceremonies for trans people and for new drag personas. And she also does ceremonies to bond queer families. So, Sarah, please, the floor is open. I will be very interested to hear what you have to say about any of these, and of course, anything else. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me, especially in Lesbian Visibility Week. It's quite the honour to have been asked to do this, and quite rightly, this is not scripted. This is just me letting you into a window of my personal experience. This year is my 30th anniversary of coming out. So I came out in 1996, and it was a year before Ellen DeGeneres. I love saying that. I was like, a year before I met. And then it was around the time, because I know you're a history bunch of people, so I'm going to hit on some of the history things. So it was a year before Diana died, but it was the same year she got divorced. The Macarena came out that year. It was only 7 years after the Berlin Wall come down. That made me feel old, I'll be honest. It was a massive watershed moment for HIV and AIDS crisis. It was when the introduction of HAART came through, the HAART, which is, wrote this down, highly active antiretroviral therapy, which changed the game for people with HIV and AIDS at the time, because it went from being a death sentence to a livable therapeutic hope. So what else was there? John Major was PM, and Bill Clinton was in the White House. So there you go. There's your history from me. That's about as scripted as we're gonna get. So I'm gonna take myself back to, like, people always say, "Oh, when did you know that you were gay, or when did you know you like girls?" And the thing is, I know that a lot of people go, "Oh, I knew like from when I was 7." And I was like, I didn't know at that age. I remember being about 9 years old, and I remember watching Heather Locklear on the TV and knowing she was a very, very pretty person I wanted to look at a lot. But I didn't understand why. I didn't understand that that was different. And there was certainly nothing around me that was gay. So I didn't even know the word gay. I was quite naive at the time. I mean, around that age, I think I asked my mum if I was a Catholic or a prostitute. So that just shows you like the level of understanding I had about life that back then. But it's only when you cast your mind back and you go, oh, there were signs. But up to that point, I was a ballerina. I was the most femme person, still am, the person that you could ever meet in your life. But I had these thoughts and feelings that I couldn't A, process, and B, I didn't have anything around me that told me anything about it. And then skip to like when I was about 15, I went to see my friend in a play because I was into the arts and music and dancing and stuff back then. And I was sat on the front row, and there was a band playing, the usual band at a theatre. And there was a person playing the piano, and it was the 90s, so there was floppy hair going on, right? But I was just like, that person is just mesmerizing. And when my friend came over, I said to her, oh, that person on the piano is like so fit. And I was like, and then they went like this, and I went, oh, it's asking me over there for a drink. And she said, Sarah, that he is a she. And I was like, God, she knows. Because I didn't think she knew, but I was just like, yeah, yeah. And then I got obsessed. I was just, because it was the first real gay person I'd ever seen in real life. And they had a partner, and I was 15, and they were like in their 20s. So, of course, they're not going to look at me in any certain way. But for me and my very fast beating 15-year-old heart, it was the first time that I'd met or saw myself represented in real time with people being okay with it. I still didn't say anything to anyone, not a soul. And then on my 18th birthday, which was the 17th of May, 1996, um, I blew out my candles, and inside my head, I was like, I wish that I meet a girl and I can come out and be gay, right? And I blew my candles out, and then all my friends were straight, and I decided to take them all to the gay bar without telling them a thing. They knew nothing at all. Took them to our local gay bar, which was, well, it was a nightclub called Street Life in Leicester. And I went to the bar, and this woman came up, and well, the girl at the time, and she was like, "Oh, have you got your number?" And I went, "Oh no, I'm not gay. I'm not gay." So pure panic. I was like, I don't know what to do this. And then I thought, I can't be gay because I don't even know how to be gay. So I don't even know anything. So that shut me back down for a couple of months. But then Alanis Morissette was out, Jagged Little Pill, that came out the year before. So I think anyone that knows that album, it's such a cool album. But I was like in my feels listening to Alanis. So I was like determined. And I was also a singer at the time. And in our local karaoke bar, a couple of my friends used to bring this particular girl along. And she just caught my eye. And I didn't think anything of it. I was far too scared to approach that. And nobody thought in a million years that I would be the gay one because I was femme. And believe it or not, we were quite invisible back then. Um, but then I decided I was going to go move to the Isle of Wight for a while, right? To be with my friend, uh, one of my male friends from I've been holidaying there for years and years. So the day before now, I was due to move to the Isle of Wight from Leicester. I had packed my case, but then I didn't have my bank card, and my bank card was in my friend's house, and she'd gone on holiday. So I had to then foster my other friend to, because she was the only one with a car. Because when you're 18, you only have a certain amount of friends that are driving. So she comes to pick me up, and then we managed to get my card out because it was just at the bottom of the door. So I don't know how, I can't remember how we managed to do it, but we did it. And during that car journey, I just happened to mention this person and said, are they with anyone? Like, she was like, oh no, no, they're not with anyone. And I was like, and if they were with anyone, would they be going out with a girl or a boy? Or like, and this is quite advanced for the 90s. You didn't really have those conversations back then. And then she just literally stopped the car and looked at me, and she herself was gay. And she just stopped the car and looked at me and went, Sarah, are you asking me if she's dateable? Like, do you want to date her? And I just stopped and I went, I don't know, I don't know. And then she went, right, we're going to my sister's. So off she took me to a flat, then full of lesbians, all like calling me the baby lesbian because they were like, oh my God, she's gonna come out, and that's so cute. And they made me ring her in the middle of the room on an old phone because we didn't have mobiles back then. So we had like an old phone that, and I just had a karaoke competition as well, which was mental. So just about to move to the Isle of Wight, doing my karaoke competition. And they agreed to come to this karaoke competition with my friend. So it wasn't an official date, but it was kind of like we both understood the assignment, if that makes sense. So after that, I had my very first lesbian kiss. And I was moving to the Isle of Wight the next day, and I could not have been sadder about that fact. So I went to the Isle of Wight and spent 3 days going to the arcades, changing a £5 note into like a million 10p's because back then we had to use pay phones. And I was ringing my friend who knew because nobody else in the world knew that I'd done that or wanted to do that. And she promised me faithfully that it was an absolute secret between the three of us and nobody else would know about this. But I was ringing them all the time going, I can't believe I've done it. Like, and now I've done it. I want to come home. And they were like, well, we're going out on to Street Life on Friday. And so I was like, I'm coming home and I'm coming because I knew that that person was going to be there. And I wanted to be out, like I was ready, and I was quite a big character, so I could handle a bit of, pushback if any. So I got back to Leicester, and I popped my frock on, and off I went to Street Life. And but on this particular night, what would be good for me to mention is my best friend in the whole world was coming with all of our other straight friends. So again, she had no idea that I was gay, and we were the best of friends. You know, we used to sleep in the same bed, and I watched their child being born, and you know, we had a very, very tight connection. But she was from a Caribbean background that didn't really, you know, there were never anything positive to say about kind of who I was. So I was really nervous about that fact. But we all went to this nightclub and the music was on loud, and this particular person was there, and I was like, hi. And they were like, hi, you're right. And then just kind of walked off, and I was devastated because I was like, I've literally moved heaven and earth to come back. And she didn't she didn't seem very interested. It turns out that she was actually quite shy at the end and just didn't believe that I was gay. So fair enough on her part. But one of our friends had caught our conversation but hadn't heard anything, um, and was joking with my other friend who said, "Oh, Sarah slept with Kath," as a joke. And then basically, my other friend who did know said, "Oh, no, no, it was just a kiss." So my entire friendship group found out on the same night without my wanting to do that. And that was a massive shock. So I ran to the toilets, cried my eyes out because I just thought, this is horrendous. I'm going to lose everybody. And actually, it was really sweet because my friend came up to me and just said, "I'm absolutely not mad at you being gay or a lesbian. I'm mad you didn't tell me. Like, I'm sad that you didn't think that you could open up to me." And I felt really stupid at that point, but I think you just get inside your own head because you've been thinking about it for years. This is not something that happened on that night. It was for them, but it wasn't for me. So that was the first milestone of coming out to my friends. But then there was the parents to deal with. I was the youngest of five. My daddy and most of my siblings are from Northern Ireland, in County Antrim, and they moved back to England. Well, they were from here, but they moved back to England in 72 when the Troubles were around. So that's why they stayed kind of in England, and that's why I've got the accent like Sue Pollard and Charity Shop Sue. But forgive that. But my roots are bedded in Northern Ireland. But anyway, so after that had happened, I couldn't take my friends out on the gay scene because it just wasn't there yet. So back then, there was adverts in papers. I know, and it sounds mad, but in the backs of the papers, it would be like looking for friends or looking for this. This particular person put looking for somebody to come onto the gay scene with, single female. And I thought, perfect, because I'm that person. So basically, I contacted this person, and it was not in a romantic way at all. It was purely camaraderie, like, let's do this together type thing. So we both went out onto the gay scene for the very, very first time, to a place called the Pineapple. And if any of you have watched like Police Academy and the idea of the Blue Oyster Bar and things like that, that was what was in my brain. But it didn't help by the fact that there were lots of people in chaps, which I'd never saw before. But there was a whole mixed bunch of people in there, and I couldn't quite work it out because there were so many different types and varieties of people in there that I'd never ever witnessed before in the local social club that I'd only ever been to as a child. So once we'd done that, we went out a few times. I then started to build other friendships and start to talk to people, and I met a girl. And then we got together. So I thought, right, it's probably time to tell the parents. So I tackled my mum first because I thought she might be easier. So I went upstairs, brought her a cup of tea, and she went, "What have you done?" I was like, "Just make you tea," but she knew there was something. And I sat on the bed and I said, "Mummy, I do have something to tell you." Um, and then she wouldn't let me talk and just went through everything. So, you know, you've got pregnant, you're not well, you're in debt, you've got in trouble with the law. She went through literally everything. And then I said, "No, Mummy, I like girls." And she said, "Oh, you're a lesbian." And I was like, "I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it, but yeah, yeah, I am." And she went, "Oh, I'll take you to the doctors on Monday. It's just depression." So that was the response. So it wasn't, "Oh, no, you're not, I hate you." It was kind of a loving response in terms of, "Oh, you're just depressed," type thing. And I was like, "No, I'm not depressed. I'm kind of happy actually. I'm kind of all right." But that's how I feel. Like, I want to date girls, and I have been dating a girl. Um, so my mum kind of put that to bed and was like, "Okay," but didn't tell my dad. So My dad was still the mystery, and he was struggling a little bit with alcohol at the time and been made redundant. Um, excuse me. So basically, I'd been seeing this girl, and it got to like New Year's Eve, and we had like, the what are them cameras called that you just, the one cameras, the old ones, the click and press, you know what I mean? So they were old-fashioned cameras, and you did have to wait a week for them to be developed. That was just life, right? So we'd gone to this New Year's Eve, and then we got all the photos developed, which we were excited about. But on those photos was me, my girlfriend at the time, other gay people, all on these pictures, and I was kissing her in some of these. Now, I'd put them at the edge of the kitchen side in its little packet, forgetting that my dad was due home. And also, the person that I was kissing in the pictures was in the front room at the time with her sister. So he had no idea about who I was or what I'd been doing. And he came in from work and he looked at the photos, and then I just heard the door go again. And I thought, oh God, because he had a look at those and then gone into the front room and then been faced with the person that he just saw his daughter kissing. So that was interesting. I went to the bar to find him to say, listen, Daddy, I'm sorry you found out like that. Because that was never my intention. That wasn't, was never going to be the easy out for me. And my daddy just said, I need a minute. And I was like, fine, okay. By the end of the day, apparently he was threatening the barman, saying that I could pull better women than him. So he kind of got on board quite quickly, I think, bless him. But it did take him a hot minute to do that. But after that, after the kind of first settlings, I was so lucky because they were really supportive in my decisions and never hid from that. My mum would say friend for a long time, but finally when I got married, she's kind of like, that's her wife. And I'm like, yes. Let's have a look. Now, so going on to the gay scene, it was really quite odd because it was quite a interesting time historically because the AIDS and HIV virus was rife. There was lots of horrible adverts on the TV. There was such a stigma around being gay or being around gay bars and things like that. And in fact, our community was brilliant because I remember first walking into the gay bars and there would always be a table, there would be free contraception, there would be someone there with advice. There was support there within our community for our community, which I thought was fantastic. And also, it was the year that they brought out the HAART therapy for HIV and AIDS. So what that meant, it went from a death sentence into a therapeutic hope for life, which was brilliant. But there was still a lot of stigma around it. Now, within our gay community, a lot of the gay women would dress a certain way. They would normally have short hair, and things like that. And I remember that I wasn't that. I was always quite femme. I had long hair. I wore red lipstick like I am now, a bit like I am today, to be fair, but a bit thinner and a bit younger and a bit better. But there you go. But what I felt was quite invisible because people would think that I was what they do. We wouldn't say it now, but back then they would call me a fag hag. They basically just thought I was hanging around the gay bars as a supporter rather than being an actual lesbian. So I wouldn't really get hit on a lot, and people would just think I was around. And then when I was with another partner, they were from the south of England, which is near Aldershot. And I remember clearly in Aldershot, there was a gay bar there. And we had to prove that we were gay before they would let us in by kissing on the door. Like that wouldn't happen now. I mean, my integrity wouldn't let me do that. And also trying to get a drink at the bar, we would have to do the same to get a drink at the bar because they didn't want to serve us because they didn't believe that I was gay. And I suppose retrospectively, it wasn't because they were horrible, it's because we needed such a protective space that we had to be absolutely sure who was coming through our doors. But at the same time, we were then, looking at our own community in the wrong way. So I felt quite invisible in that respect. Gay people wouldn't believe I was gay, and the straight people wouldn't believe that I was gay either. But it didn't stop me telling everyone. I just did. I just felt like I needed to. I'd held it in for so long. When we were on the gay scene, it was very different in the 90s. the music was way better than it is now. Like everybody will understand that. But you could smoke in there. But the one thing that I found, it was very much a drug dance culture. And it wasn't, when I say that, I don't want you to think that, there was just a load of druggies everywhere. I mean, there was, but it was trauma bonding. We were from a generation that didn't have time to talk us through our problems or process, or, we weren't allowed to sit and feel sad about anything or, any of that. So we would push stuff really deep inside. And I think it trauma bonded us on the scene. We were such a group of misfits from every walk of society. And there were straight people in there as well, but it was people who were marginalized in the society. So we would have every colour, every size, every shape of person in our gay scene. And we were all one happy family who supported each other, but we were all trauma bonded because none of us knew how to deal with our life. So we just thought the best thing to do, get drunk or get off your face and have a dance. And and that's what we all did. And I still speak to some people from that time because we genuinely were trauma bonded. It's a very, very different now. People don't tend to have to do that anymore, but it certainly was a go-to back then. You walk into every bar, you could smell poppers left, right, and center. In fact, it wasn't really a gay bar unless you could smell the poppers. I don't even know if it's like that now. It certainly wasn't when I went to Union Street the other week. It was beautiful in there. Okay, so basically, I've put it got easier with time, and it did. Time was the healer. So, with every march that we did, with every time we wore our red bow on the 1st of December for AIDS awareness, every small tiny step that we took to support our community means that now anybody can walk into a gay bar, be wearing what they want, be who they are, and get served at the bar. So if you're a young person listening to this and you can do those things, then it's on our shoulders that you did that. There was work that needed to be done, and we did it. And at the moment, sadly, the world seems to be taking a slight turn again. And I try not to watch too much news because it gets me down, but I'm seeing pockets of information coming out about the gay rights of people and queer rights, about everything all around the world, that are slowly being stripped away. And I think now is a time that we need to stand up stronger than ever and support our communities and our people within that community, and show them that we are regular people with regular jobs, with regular day-to-day life. We sit and watch TV, we have our dinner and we do normal things. We walk the dog, because I think that the media has a lot to answer to in terms of how it portrays our community. And I think we need to shout a little bit louder, to kind of correct what's happening at the moment. And I do believe we'll get through it. I do believe that sense will prevail, and I think love will prevail. And I think I'm a big supporter in that. I think it's the highest frequency and vibration you can be on. And so I will always lead with love, which is what made me then go into being the rainbow celebrant. But before that, I just wanted to touch base on my lovely wife. So skip all of those years to 2014. And I met my wife through a mutual friend, first name Plenty of, surname Fish. And basically, we went on to, she shouldn't have actually showed up, weirdly enough. I was in Leicester, I didn't drive, and I thought, more than 50 miles is a little bit cheeky for a date, isn't it, if you don't drive? So I put it as a 50-mile radius. And she was in Bristol and I was in Leicester. And so she was like at least 100 and something odd miles away. So she shouldn't have come up on there. But I was just scrolling past and then I saw her little face. And I actually scrolled past her, which was terrible. But something made me scroll back. And I was like, that's such a lovely face. Like, it was just a lovely face. And so I just messaged, hey, do you fancy a natter? Because I was never one of them like, hey, you've got nice eyes, or all the other dating stuff that makes me cringe in my soul. So I'm just like, let's have a chat kind of person. So I'd sent her that. Little did I know that she was in the middle of a choir rehearsal, because she used to be one of the directors for the biggest gay choir in Bristol. And there was 80 of them in this big choir, and she was at rehearsals there and got my message through, and apparently she was beaming and smiling, which is always good. And I actually sent a message saying hot dates, no suitcases, because I know what we're like. I know, and I know that we meet people and we fall in love straight away and all that jazz. But I was determined not to do that this time. I was like, no, I'm going to be strong in myself, and I'm just going to go on dates and date and be with myself for a while. So after 3 days of talking on FaceTime, she then came all the way from Bristol to Leicester, and that was it. Yeah. So we met and we loved each other from day dot. We connected by music, and we just got on so well. We love accents and being daft because I mean growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. And I am a big advocate for just mess about and be silly and fun. Life gets a little bit serious sometimes. So, that's what we do. We're like best friends and we have the most fun. And I just thought, this is silly. I don't want to let her go. What am I playing at? She could play instruments and all sorts. I was very happy with myself. And she was a teacher as well. So I thought, great. And I ended up, because I was working in recruitment, I actually broke my arm not long before I met my wife, Emily. And so I'd stopped my contract. So I actually wasn't working at the time that I met her, or I was not in contract. So I decided that it would be a great idea for me to go to Bristol. And we went to Bristol Monday to Friday, and we went back to Leicester at the weekends. And we would have lovely car journeys, and we would listen to the whole of Sister Act and Lionel Richie, and all of the music that we just had in common. And we sang our little hearts out, and we harmonised, and it was just wonderful. And then basically we moved from Bristol to Bath to a little cottage, and we had a year there, and it was lovely. It let our love grow, and we had time and space to unpack stuff because I don't want to tell her story for her, but she was a late comer in terms of coming out. She was in her mid 30s, had been in a marriage, in a straight marriage, and her background was in evangelical churches. So she had quite a tough time coming out, got a lot of pushback from the church and family. Um, so we definitely provided a safe space for each other to grow. Then we moved back to Leicester for a hot minute, and then sadly, both my parents got cancer in 2018-19. And then we decided that we were going to move over for 6 months to Northern Ireland because they'd moved back in 2016. They'd actually come home and moved to a seaside town. And so we came over just to help them, really, for those 6 months. We didn't think it was going to be as terrible as it was. My mum's in remission and is okay now. My daddy sadly passed away in June of 21. But it just confirmed to us that we just felt at home here. We loved the people. We loved the sincerity of the community. We loved the saying, I won't see you wrong. I won't see you stock. Sorry for the accent. I'm trying every day. I've been here for 6 years. You'd think I'd be able to do the accent by now, but I can't. Have a wee try. Add sauce now. That's not bad. Now I forgot where I was going with this. But anyway, so long story short is because my daddy was dying, he wanted to walk me down the aisle. So we were like, well, we want to get married then. So we only had 3 months to plan a wedding. And it had only just been legal in Northern Ireland that year. So I think it was legal from the January, and this was the December. And my daddy was so excited about it, and he was like raving about it. And we had lots of help, and we ended up getting married on the 12th of December at Orange Tree House, which is in Grey Abbey, if anybody knows that there. Such a beautiful venue. Because of the situation we were in, we had so much support. We got a really good photographer. We had a really lovely celebrant, which is what inspired me to then become a celebrant. So yeah, we were very, very lucky then. And then we decided to make Northern Ireland our home because we just I felt so embraced by people. And to be honest, it's my ancestral home. So my bones and my blood feels right here. It just feels right. I just can't get rid of this accent to stop it, but still. Um, so then I became the Rainbow Celebrant, and my wife is a teacher, but she's also a drummer. And basically, she has now started up her own little project called She Who Drums, and it's a drumming circle. She did start off with a women only drumming circle as a safe space, but she is also doing a We Who Drums to invite everybody to that space. as well. And so she's now doing that and serving the Northern Ireland Peninsula. She actually has some dates coming up in May, and they'll be held at the Hollywood Steiner School. So if you want to go onto the Instagram and check those out. But myself, I became the Rainbow Celebrant, because I felt we were all underrepresented as humans, and not just through the normal stuff, but like, I mean, I don't want to get too dark on here, but things like we will go through life-changing issues like cancer, death. We're humans, we're going to go through that. But there's very little support purely for our community in that. And I know that is it the Rainbow Project? Is that the name of the Rainbow Network or Project? Um, I know that they have a really good cancer support group for queer people. But I trained as a death doula as well because I not only want to, well, I'll serve anybody, but I want to be there as a source of comfort for those people that are going through troubles basically in their life. And I also have a passion for people and love. And so when you bring that to the table and I get to do that as a job, then, that's a privilege in itself, isn't it? But what I find lovely is that I get couples come to me and they completely open up with their story and let me inside their little heads. And like, I get to hear all the quirks in relationships and that kind of thing. And it really is fantastic. And we've got some really good people in our community, and we should shout about them more and we should celebrate them more. And, not be afraid to do that. And don't be afraid to not be in a box. Like, it's okay. Like me, I've been a lesbian now since 1996. But you would walk past me on the street and you wouldn't think twice or know twice. But what I love about that is now I'm looking around on TikTok and things like that, and there's loads of lesbians out there now, which is fantastic because it just was not a thing back then. And I felt like a bit of a trailblazer of just sticking to my guns and my red lipstick and going for it. But I hope that this encourages people to be themselves, be visible, and if there's any gay people out there, queer people out there, whatever letter you sit under, you're welcome in my space. And so you can reach out. I'm on Instagram as the Sarah Jane the Rainbow Celebrant. I also have a website as well, but the link to that is on there, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So if you do have any questions about anything, then please reach out. I am an open book with that. Just to touch base on the living wakes, purely for you, Kirsty. Um, who doesn't want to go to their own funeral? Like, who doesn't want to do it? It basically there was a lady in England and she sadly had terminal cancer, but she really wanted to just have her own funeral. And as it happens, she knew a friend who knew Dawn French, and she asked Dawn French to be the vicar of Dibley at her living wake. And I'm pretty sure you can find this on the internet, so you'll be able to find this. And she did her own funeral as the vicar of Dibley, as on her living wake. And she heard all the stories that people would say in a eulogy. She heard all the songs that people would like to play. There was a casket at the front where people could sew flowers through or little messages to put, to her on. And she got to witness that all before she went. And to be honest, that's when it counts, I think. Like, you're leaving a legacy and you get to smile and laugh about stuff that's quite difficult and dark sometimes. And, there's so much fear in end of life and death in general. And I am so determined to change that landscape because it's part of life. And I have been there with the dying on more times than I've had hot dinners because randomly, and this is a random thing, but I grew up in an old people's home. That sounds really weird, but my mum worked at the old people's home, but it was round the corner from our house. And in the 80s, it was an open door. So we used to go on holiday with the residents and everything like that. So from a very young age, I got to understand the cycle of life and death a little earlier than most people, I would say. And so for me, the living wakes just give you the opportunity to hear what everyone actually really thinks about you, and for it to be a real celebration of life while that person's there in front of you, and go out with a bang. That's what I say. So yeah, that's the story behind that. And I'm so sorry if I've rambled. I do have ADHD and I do have a tendency to ramble, but I hope I explained my story okay for you. And I am fully open for any questions that
Wow.
any of you may have about that.
Well,
Roller
Sarah,
coaster.
I just have to say it, like you have given us so much to think about. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Your passion for your craft, well, your passion for your job, for your craft, for your identity is just so infectious, and it's just lovely to have that to see that enthusiasm. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
This is
much.
an
That's
honor,
so
actually.
lovely to say.
Yeah. But yeah, you've basically answered my questions. I was going to ask you about the living wicks and why you do them. But you said here about, well, number one, you managed to get Dawn French to attend a funeral. Like that is some skill. Like
It's a
Dawn
skill,
French, I'm
isn't
very
it?
jealous. If she turns up to my funeral, I can die happy, okay? Um, yes,
Listen,
but
you
so
can
much fear.
absolutely get in contact and I will help you and
Hmm.
sort you out with your
Okay,
living weight.
right.
You can plan
Brilliant.
it anytime.
Well, I'll keep it in mind. I'm a bit young, but I'll keep it in mind. But yes, you said so much fear at the end of life. I'm determined to end that. That is very true. We definitely need a much more positive attitude to
Yeah,
end of life,
we
especially
do.
for queer people.
I
Hmm.
want to change people's fear into wonder.
Yes.
So I want them to stop fearing what was going to happen in those moments, in those final moments, and
Hmm.
learn to live life. And I tell you what really resonates with me is there's a song called The Rose, and Bette Midler sings it. And
Hmm.
there's a line in it
Yes.
that says, there's
Hmm.
a line that says, and the soul afraid of dying never learns to live. That really struck with me. And I thought,
That's
you are
lovely.
right. If we got a diagnosis today, how
Hmm.
different would we live? What different choices would we make? What calls would we make? Who would we want to talk to? So
Hmm.
then, why wait? Why wait for that moment where you're thinking about what you should have done? Just do that now. And what that does is it means that you get to choose love every day. You get to choose joy every day. You get to do exciting things every day
Hmm.
because you're living not as if it's your last day, but you're just present. You're just present in life. And
Yes.
there is
Uh-huh.
although the world is mental at the minute around the world, my bubble, I can only be the change that I want to see. I'm responsible for myself. So
Yeah.
I can't change the whole world, but I can change the whole world for one person at a time. And that is where my driver is I want people to learn to live through understanding and being educated about death. And
Hmm.
so that's kind, I know that's this is not what I come on here for. Come in here talking about
No, it's
lesbians,
very
but
interesting. Very
you know,
interesting. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay.
you are
I'm going to
welcome.
open it up. I'm going to open up the floor. So if anyone's got any questions, please go right ahead. I'll keep an eye on the chat as well if you want to stick a wee question in the chat, but otherwise, please feel free to talk.
Can I just
Oh,
ask you
yeah, there you go.
something? Well, you see, I'll just give you a wee synopsis, like a bit like you did there, right? Now, I realised I was gay when I was living in England, right? And I fancied this girl, and I was 17 at the time, right? And then I moved to Belfast in 92, and then it was a few years maybe after that I sort of decided I should do something about it. But anyway, eventually lived on my own. It was actually my sister's second wedding anniversary when I moved into my own flat. And then it was the following January, so it was January 98. I went down to what would have been the old Parliament, right? And I was standing at the bar, and it was the fellow was at the bar ordering a drink, and he turned around and said to me, "You don't really like in here, do you?" And I said, "No." So then he told me of a place called Queer Space. So I went up there and I joined them, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, to cut long story short, so 2 years later, in 2000, I had three cousins that got married, right? And one of them, I had arranged with my auntie's friend to dance with her, right? And at one point, I spotted somebody that I hadn't seen since secondary school, right? And I ditched her. She was raging. I ditched her in the middle of the dance. Went over to him right away, and we started talking. And what do you call it? I said to him, "Oh, by the way, Peter, I'm gay now, right?" And he says to me, "I knew years ago, right?" But we never got finished in that conversation. And then,
Yeah.
unfortunately, he committed suicide later on that year, just around Christmas time, I think it was. But anyway, so I never found out from him when the heck did he know? No, because we knew each other from P5, and then he went to Coleraine, and so actually he used to get off the bus I got on to go home, so we would have stopped and had a chat for years. So I don't even know how he knew that I didn't, and I didn't know. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. So
But
it's a
anyway,
mystery.
like I said, I was talking to somebody about this recently, and I said, when I came out, I didn't just come out, I banged the wardrobe, bloody didn't. I was running about the streets, even on my way back from the Kremlin, shouting out, spice up your life, become a
Spice
lesbian
Girls
and all
came
this
out in
here,
96.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I remember one guy at Bradbury Place there, he was coming out of Bandix, and he came up to me and shook my hand and says, "You're the first lesbian I've met." And I said, "Are you serious?"
How lovely.
But anyway, so I haven't had that many girlfriends. But actually, you know something, it's not the be all and end all. I don't really want anybody now because I'm happy
No.
just, being me and living by myself, to be quite honest with you. But here, you see that weight carry on that you're talking about. Yeah, I'd be really interested in that now if I did get something terminal.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
It
'Cause
does.
my mum,
What would you do? What would you
my
have at
mum,
yours? If you could
no,
plan
no,
your
no.
living weight, what would you have?
My mum came out with a comment a couple of years ago saying, "I'd love to go to your funeral." She says, "Because you've that many friends, it would be absolutely brilliant." But you know what I had already told her before what I would want my funeral to be, right? Because I don't believe in God, for starters, but
Yeah.
so it'd be cremated, right? And I thought,
Mhm.
my favourite spot is Carrickfergus Castle, and I always had a big thing because when I was born in '68, right? So
Yeah.
around that time was the height of the space race, right? So I wanted a rocket built of wood, sort of in the style of NASA, launched out of Carrickfergus Castle with my ashes in it, and that would be the way I'd want to
Do you
go.
know you can have that?
Can
You
you
know you
really?
can do
Because
it.
I thought you'd have to get special permission and all that.
So what you do is you have the ashes put into a firework, and then once your ashes are in the firework, you then get sent up there, and it goes,
Wow.
and that would be gorgeous. And you know what?
So a firework lesbian.
I haven't attended one like that, but it was when I was younger. One of my close friends' daughters passed away quite young, and they were quite a cool family. They had like a wicker casket with the beautiful flowers sewn in and stuff. But then she got cremated, and her ashes were put inside a firework, and then they just sent off the fireworks, and then there was a firework display. And I
Yeah,
thought that was the most beautiful thing. I thought, when you say you're going out with a bang, you really are, aren't you? If you're going out on a
yeah. But
firework.
I just don't want any ordinary fire work. I want thing that it actually looks like a NASA sort of
Oh, I
white thing, and
see.
an actual rocket, sorry, maybe I should have made that a bit clearer. Yeah.
No, no, I think you did. I just thought logistically that might not be able to happen. But as if not that, you could probably get the firework and put something round it to make
Yeah,
it
I
look
suppose
like that.
you could make it look like a NASA rocket. Yeah, I suppose you
Where
could.
there's a
Yeah.
will, there's a way. There is always a way. I'm so pleased though that you would consider something like that, because your mum's right. What a party that would be. I mean, I'm surprised she's not buttering the egg and onion sandwiches
Oh,
already.
no, 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 no. I know the wee second here. My mum's one of those people. Look, well, I'll have maybe a chat with you about this some other time, but my
Yeah.
mum's a control freak, so what do you call it? No, 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 no. It would have to be done my way, not the way she would want it.
Yes, write it down, write it down. But like you said, you can contact me on Instagram or via my website, and I'll be more than happy to jump on a call and have a chat with you anytime.
Okay,
So
no problem.
you get in touch and we
Thank
can
you.
talk about death and wakes to our heart's content.
And lesbian fireworks.
Yeah, and lesbian
Lesbian
fireworks. Who
fireworks.
doesn't want
Wow.
them? I
I
know.
never thought joining this, agreeing to chair this meeting, that I would be talking about fireworks and lesbians. Like
I'll
this
be
is
honest,
amazing.
neither did I.
Well,
Lesbians, yes. Fireworks, no. But here we are.
any other questions? Anything in the chat that you'd like to say, or any comments at all?
If you don't, I'm going to be forced to sing.
Fascinating. No, that was just so lovely. I enjoyed your talk enormously. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you very much. I know it wasn't scripted. I did my best to stay in line, but I hope it all made complete sense.
Oh, it did.
It did.
It was
it did.
very good to listen to.
Oh, good.
I enjoyed it.
Do you have any stories that you would share, Kim?
Yes, I do. I've got lots of stories I could share, but
I'll have a sip.
Well, I basically I came out in Cape Town, and it was so different. Yeah, no, it was very different. That's where I'm from originally, and then I went to go and live in London from about 21. So very, very lovely times of coming out, going clubbing. But I was so interested in your talking about what did you say, trauma, like when everybody used to get so out of their heads, like on drugs and
the trauma bond.
Trauma bond, yeah. Very interesting that.
It was such a therapy. What we found was we would all congregate in toilets and we were all, either drunk or off our faces, and we would be talking about life. And it was like a social group, but it was therapy before therapy was a thing.
Exactly.
And when you think about, going clubbing and taking drugs, it has a certain visual that it gives you, but this wasn't it. This was very much a family trauma bonded together, and everybody's story was different, but it was all the same fear, lack of love, lack of understanding, not being heard, not being seen. So actually, although the stories were very different, the actual problems internally, your feelings were very similar. And so we just kind of come together as a clump and would just dance our butts off for hours and hours on end, and we all felt fabulous afterwards. So did you experience that yourself when you were in London? What kind of year was this?
Probably 86, 87. But I remember particularly in Cape Town when I was coming out and I hadn't told anybody that I thought I was gay, and going to this fabulous club, which would have been very accepting. I mean, Cape Town was always very open, and it was Rita's, and then going to Rita's, and then there was a gay club around the corner, but there was also another. I don't even know how come I went there, but I just popped over and there were loads of prostitutes, and going into the loos where all the prostitute women were, and actually chatting to them, and it was fascinating. And then, like, I just remember this incident of this woman being desperately upset because somebody threw her out of a car and hadn't paid her, and then there were so many tablets going around, and just nipping in there, and then going around the corner to a gay bar, and like just the first time of sort of going to a gay bar. And there were loads of gay bars in Cape Town. It was very interesting. It was fascinating.
And it sounds similar in terms of the mixture of people. So it was almost like the margins of society, like you said, the prostitutes in your case, and the same in ours. It was almost like the margins just come together and went, right, we're in this together. And there was no problem about, what background you were from, how old you were, what your abilities were or disabilities were. There was none of that. We just took each other for face value. We all knew that we were in that bar because that was our safe space, and we all needed that safe space. So we all protected that safe space so fiercely that you felt like it was a coming home when you went onto the gay bars. But outside of the gay bars, like in regular bars and stuff, the amount of people that when they find out you're gay thought that it was absolutely their God-given right to be able to ask you the most intimate questions about, like, how do you do it? Where do you put it? And the worst one for me was, which one's the man? And I'm like, completely. It just drove you mad, didn't it? But we got through it. But that's the reason why we went and kept to our spaces, is because we didn't have to do all of that. We didn't have to explain ourselves. We could just be ourselves within that.
Yeah.
But
it's so interesting. I remember how difficult it was, and that you couldn't really come out. And it was very difficult. Interestingly, for me, I was married when I came to Northern Ireland, and I lived in, God, where was it? It was like up from Sandy Row, whatever that road's called. And I said to my neighbor, this is my wife. And the next day on our bin, we had Licky Vicky written on it. And I just thought, oh my God. Yeah. And I thought,
Goodness.
yeah, on Tavanna Street. And I thought,
When did you
okay,
move here?
in 2009. So I think that we
Right.
probably would have been one of the few gay married women.
Yeah, you would have
In,
been. I mean, it only become
Right,
legal in
yeah.
Northern Ireland in
No,
2020, which
yeah.
seems crazy, doesn't it? It's like it was one of the last countries for it to be legal. And the best thing is they didn't even fight for it to be legal. It was just they weren't installment by a certain time, and so
Yeah, it
it
was like
got
an
through by
ultimatum. That's
default.
what it was.
Yeah. So
Yep.
there was nobody there that bothered a lot to do that. And I think, probably a lot of politicians were like, damn, I should have gone for that vote. But you
Yeah.
didn't. So we got the rights.
Yeah, well, thank
Which,
goodness for Nelson Mandela. I mean, he was
quite, yeah.
absolutely. But I mean, we had the DA woman who was so homophobic.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
well,
it's
it's probably we had what do you call her that was in charge of the DUP? The
the
female first
sorry.
minister? Sorry,
Yeah.
here it's here. I'm trying to think of her. Arlene Foster. So she
Honestly,
kept
yeah.
on saying, "Oh, well, you just have the other thing. What do you call it? Civil partnership. Why do you need marriage and all this here? Carry on, you know."
Sorry, guys. I just need to interrupt very quickly because we have people in the chat looking to ask questions. So Asus, is that your name? You want to ask something? And Grania, I noticed that you put your hand up, but then you quickly stopped. So Asus, do you want to ask a wee question? And then Grania?
No, thanks. No, thanks. Sorry. I was asking Joe to unmute me. I was holding up thing.
Oh, right.
Oh, sorry. I thought
All
that
right.
was because you wanted to ask a question.
Oh, you're being held
You want to
hostage.
talk.
Oh my goodness. Held hostage by the
when the lady
lesbians.
started talking about Cape Town, I've been to a few times.
Held hostage by the lesbians. Oh my goodness, I'm so
I
sorry.
know, right, can you imagine?
Too much flannel. Okay,
Did you have
Grania.
a question, Asus?
No, my name is Marty.
Oh,
Matty?
right. I noticed on Zoom your name
No,
was.
that's
Oh, that's the
computer.
computer
Yeah,
thing,
I
isn't
thought
it?
so. I thought so. Okay,
I'm
Marty.
so
No,
sorry,
I don't
Matty.
think that I'm not computer literate. I'm not tech savvy at all.
Me neither, don't
worries.
worry.
No,
worries.
not
I'm not
either.
either.
No.
Sorry, did you want to ask a wee question, or were you just looking to get unmuted, or are you okay
No,
for your
I was
question?
just enjoying the conversation, to be
Okay.
honest.
All right. Oh, thank you very much. So Grania, you wanted to ask a wee question? You put your hand up and then you
Yeah,
didn't.
sorry.
There you go.
I just sort of on various comments and stuff. I mean, Sarah, like you, I was a bit of a late starter. I came up to Belfast in '89. Well, I came up to Belfast in '88 and came out in '89. But you were saying about the clubs. It's very true. I mean, in Belfast, when I came out, there was a club down by where Yorkgate is now. And it used to be an old Irish bar. And upstairs there, I mean, it was absolutely brilliant up there. It was full of everybody you could think of, and loads of the gay guys. But to get into it, they had a metal door, and you had to bang on the metal door, and somebody who would need to know who you are to let you in the door.
Yeah.
So the couple of first times I went with a few friends, and then after that I was able to go by myself. But I mean, I always had to laugh because in the bar, in the women's toilets, you know, ladies with the women's toilets are like, there's a huge big long mirror and about 2 toilets in any women's toilet you go to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in the loos and I was still very green, and I came out and there were half a dozen drag queens in various states of being drag queens doing their makeup and their eyebrows and the whole 9 yards. So I used to go to stop a lot of time. I went into the men's toilets because it just saved time with the queens when the other
it was
ones.
so much quicker.
And
I used to do that back in the day too.
Absolutely. I came out and all I heard was a half a dozen guys screaming, "Lesbian, get out!" And I go, "These are all in my toilets. You can't have it both ways." But anyway,
you're right.
So that was the club bar. And then they used to go from the Crow's Nest, which used to be on Skipper Street, opposite where the merchant is now, as if the car park where the merchant is, literally there. And a lot of them would walk around. Now, Belfast was a dive then, and that was '89 or '90. There was no, around the Cathedral Quarter, there was no lights, there was nothing. You literally took your life in your hands.
Yeah.
And so they would go from the Crows over to the York Gate Bar. And that was grand, but the Crows was the same. I mean, the bar staff or the bar bouncers used to know everybody who went in, without a doubt. If
Yeah.
straight when now a lot of the fellas brought a couple of straight friends in, but you'd have to be with a bloke to get in. And
Yeah.
you really,
The bouncers knew everybody, didn't they?
Yeah,
You're quite
they-
right. The bouncers knew everybody by name, and it was
yeah,
so important they did.
absolutely. And I mean, it wasn't a rule, but it was an unwritten rule that there was no more than 2 women to 1 man if they went
Right.
in, 3 women to 1
Yeah.
man if they went in. So I mean that kept it sort of, as you said, within the community.
Mhm.
And there was a sense, I mean, there was a great sense of community in Belfast then. I mean, I hung around with most of the guys. I didn't really hang around with a lot of the women until later on in the mid-90s. So I hung around with a lot of the guys, and the sense of community there, because everybody was underground, was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And
And did
I
you
was lucky.
find,
Sorry?
sorry, that was me talking over you. I'd apologize. I was going to say, did you find when you went into those bars, was it the same? Because that would have been right in the height of the AIDS and the HIV pandemic and crisis. Did you also because I wasn't around in like Northern Ireland at that time, did you have like little tables with people giving out free information, contraception, kind of
Not
that kind of
really.
stuff? No,
We did
over
have
here we weren't.
No, Rainbow came into being, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, around 95. Now, there were a
94.
few friends that I knew who were involved with Rainbow, but basically Rainbow was 2 guys and a couple of condoms going, have one, have one, have one, have one, and then throwing it at everybody. I mean, there was no real pamphlets of saying this is this and this is that. And there wasn't that sort of stuff at all. There was a guy with a shoulder bag handing out condoms to the men. That was basically it.
We had like little
I
packets.
used to shout at him. I used to shout at Moses all the time. Where's my dental dam? I want a dental dam.
That's what I was just about to say. Was if you remember, like what we used to get was there was a table and they had all these things that you could pick up free, including contraception. But there was a packet and it used to be about this big, and you would just take it and put it in your handbag. But basically, it would have lube, a condom, a dental dam, and some information. And so. But I don't listen, I'm talking from a lesbian perspective. I don't know who created those dental dams, but they were not lesbians because you need to have a contortionist. I don't know if any of you remember it, but you
definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely not. I mean,
I tried it once and I put it in the bin because it was just pointless, absolutely pointless. But yeah. It just reminded me, it just sparked me of that memory.
By the time we got to the Parliament, which was later on, I just did a bit of a backtrack. The 90s, a lot of the people who came out in the 90s, now it's not to say the communities who came before us, weren't proud and out with their sexuality. They were. But by the time the 90s came, we were getting more confident, which is one of the reasons why Pride happened in 91.
Yeah.
But by being confident, a lot of straight bars that didn't have students coming in Thursday, Friday or whatever, people started to say, we had Dempsey's on a Saturday night, we had the Limelight on a Monday night, we had, the bars started opening up.
Yeah, good.
By the time, what was I going to say, by the time this sort of Parliament came around, I think it was probably the first really out gay club in Belfast, and I mean I know Claire didn't have great memories of it, but I loved the Parliament.
Well, actually, I'm just going to correct you there. You see, after a few years of being with my sort of gay friends in queer space, I grew to sort of like the club scene then at the start. At the start, they kind of felt, well, I didn't really, because I didn't know any woman for starters. And even as a kid growing up, most of my friends would have been men because I'm into football, more into the man things. But actually, it got to a stage where it was really bad, actually, because when the Kremlin started, Flip, I was in there 4 or 5 nights a week, every week. It got really bad at one point,
Yeah.
But
Did they used to have lesbian nights in the Parliament?
Yes, there was lesbian nights. The lesbian nights went on for quite a while. Joe, there was a couple of women's nights. They moved around. It was a couple of women's nights in the Crows. It started off in the Crows. Used to be a bar called the Whip and Saddle. I'm sure you've vaguely heard of that, Mary Ann. I'm sure.
I've heard of it.
Whoever named that, somebody come up with that name and went, that's it, we're going to go with that.
They had a women's corner in it. Now, it was before my time, so I'm only going by people's recollections. There was a women's corner in it. It wasn't specifically lesbian, quote unquote, but there was a women's corner. The Crow's Nest started upstairs. A couple of women organised women's nights upstairs. And then, where was the other one? There was Duke of York used to have quiz nights and would develop into women's nights. And then the Parliament was famous for having it on a Tuesday or Thursday. I can't remember what day it was. But there was a few friends of mine by that stage in the mid-90s. I was involved with a few women's groups. Not that many because I had a partner at the time, but a few then started. There was I don't know if you know, Sarah, but there was a group over in England called Sheena. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
No.
What is that about? What does that? How do you spell that?
Well, sorry, it wasn't Sheena. It was She, but they were starting to produce women-only safe sex stuff, like leaflets and dental dams and all that.
It rings a bell.
Yeah,
I think they were the ones that were supplying the dental dams, and I've got. I want to complain.
Well, a friend of mine sent away for the packets. And then we would adapt them. That's where the Sheena bit of the Sheena came in, and we would adapt them for ourselves and hand out handwritten leaflets. We would put in the packets and hand them out. Now they didn't go down very well. A lot of the lesbians thought that they don't get HIV and it's go away and don't know my head was sort of the attitude from a lot of the women. So it didn't really last very long, but we did make an effort.
Yeah, there was some sort of trial there.
One thing I just want to say as well. You see, because my first Pride would have been 98. I missed 99 because my niece was born that year, and then I went to most of them, but around Pride as well. My friends used to wind me up something shocking, like when I did this. But it was used to be the condoms, the lube, and a leaflet and a sweet or two, right, in the wee plastic bags, right. But I used to say, "Here, give us those, and take the sweets out of them, and then give them back to all the fellas, then, right, because I love sweets."
Very generous of you.
Told everybody there were a suppository. See how that went down.
Oh my goodness! You see, as a I like to call myself a ceasefire baby Sapphic, because I was born in 1997. So hearing all these stories,
so the year after,
yes,
I came out. Very much. Well done. That was the year Ellen came out, so that's good.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Good Friday Agreement, peace, and more Sapphic visibility. Well, we are approaching 9 o'clock, and I would love to listen to more of your stories, but unfortunately, we're going to have to stop the recording. But thank you all so much for listening on YouTube and whatever year it is that you're watching this. Thank you all so much. I'm going to leave it over to Joe to stop the recording because I don't know how to end this. So
thank you so much for inviting me. I've had such a lovely time. Thank you to everybody in the room. It's been so lovely to hear your stories.
Thank you, Sarah.
Very much, Sarah. Can I just ask you one question? You said you're LinkedIn. Is it Sarah Dalzell on LinkedIn?
Sarah Jane. So it's Sarah Jane Dalzell. Although in England we say DL, but over here it's Dalzell. It sounds so much different.
Yeah.
Because I'm